Well, the NHL is on break as the 2026 Winter Olympics are underway. But before the roster freeze went into effect, the St. Louis Blues made it definitively clear once and for all that they will be selling this season. They traded away Nick Bjugstad to the New Jersey Devils, and they also claimed Jack Finley off of waivers from Tampa Bay. So, what do these moves mean for the Blues for the rest of the season and beyond? What moves could we expect from them before the NHL trade deadline in March? And what might the Blues look like to start next season? And can that team be competitive? We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. It's John and Alec back with you as always. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast, and we do episodes twice a week. So we hope you'll subscribe and follow and rate and review and all that good stuff wherever you're joining us from. But um, Alec, we have Olympic hockey. Not only do we have Olympic hockey, we have a United States women's team that is just dominating everyone they play. I'm pretty sure they've put up 5 goals every single game they've played. And as of today, as we're recording on February 11th, the men's side has started playing as well. NHL players returning to the action for the first time in a while. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about Olympic hockey right now?
It is so much fun. I mean, I knew it was going to be so much fun, but like having recognizable players. I mean, not that college hockey isn't recognizable to some, but like more to me, recognizable players that are truly like at the peak of their athletic powers is just amazing and um, yeah, the level of competition is just insane. And something that really fired me up watching the games was watching today's Slovakia and Finland
Ooh.
matchup, and hearing how freaking loud the environment was, the stadiums were,
Yeah,
like, especially when Team Slovakia was scoring. Like, this is just such a great atmosphere. It's
it's
like the Four
different.
Nations on steroids, because you got all the nations, and um, it's just so much fun. So yeah, I would say this has been everything and more that I've hoped for so far.
Yeah, it's been great. That Slovakia Finland game. I mean, man, it's what an upset. Slovaks beat the Finns. I think that what was it, 4-1 was the final.
4-1.
And how about our boy Dalibor Dvorsky with the game winning goal? I think in the was it the third or the second that he
It
scored
was it
that?
was the third. It was the third because it was a 1-1 game
Yeah,
with
that's right.
10 to go in the third.
Yeah, not only did he score that goal, he won the face-off that started the play that led to that goal. You just put it right over Saros's shoulder. Whew, I'm telling you, man, it's fun to watch. Like you said, it's just different. It's a lot of fun. Sweden and Italy also played. I was in class, so I have not watched it. I don't know what happened. I've like avoided all of my push notifications and headlines, so I'm gonna go watch it once we're done here. See how my boy Philip Broberg did in that one. But it's back. It's back. And tomorrow on the 12th, we've got Team US plays Latvia, and then Canada plays Czechia. That one will be a lot of fun. So some more Blues players in action in that one. Um, Man, it's just so exciting. It's so exciting. I can't say it enough. Um, okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get on to our topics for today? We got a lot to talk about. And I think we should start. Let's just sort of go in chronological order here, starting with this Nick Bjugstad trade. Obviously, Nick Bjugstad signed over the offseason last summer with the Blues as a free agent. One of their two sort of center winger um, forwards that they signed via free agency. He was signed to a 2-year deal, of course, but the Blues traded him to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a prospect, Thomas Bordelot, and a conditional 2026 fourth round pick. I believe the condition on that pick is that it will be the latest of the three that the Devils have. So I think they've got their own. I think they've got one from Dallas, and I can't remember who the third one is from. But they've got three that they've acquired through other transactions. The Blues will get whichever one is latest in the fourth round. So that's the condition there. That's why it is not known which one it'll be quite yet. But thoughts on this trade? I mean, I was, I think the most shocking thing about it to me was that the Devils were acquiring Nick Bjugstad. Not quite sure why they're doing that. I don't know if they've looked at the standings. And even if it's like the type of move where they're gearing up for next season, I'm not sure how much this moves the needle for them, to be honest. But I mean, Bjugstad was like, he was fine. He was like a serviceable bottom sixer for the Blues. But thoughts on the deal and the return?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from the devil side of things, this really doesn't, I don't know, make a whole lot of sense. But from the blue side, for sure, it's a good move to get anything. I would say when the trade dropped, I was a little bit surprised. Not surprised that we traded Nick Bjugstad or that we made a trade or anything, but just that it was to me the signal of like the end of the season.
Yeah,
Um, that the front office is fully committed to. I mean, not that they have said anything otherwise since the very beginning, because they've been very transparent about it. So really, this is just them following up on promises.
right.
But I guess it was just kind of the, like when the bombs drop, it's when things is finally the beginning of the end.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think that's to me what this move signals. Getting a conditional fourth for Nick Bjugstad, sure. Um, to be honest, I don't have a ton of analysis to offer here, because I think if we're being realistic about that trade, it's just not really the one that you look to make a huge contribution. But hey,
Yeah,
if this fourth round pick turns into anything beyond awesome, like I will take that 11 out of 10 times.
yeah, it's a shot in the dark for sure.
So yeah, I mean, thoughts on the trade? I guess I would say I am um I feel like at peace or settled or resolved with the fact that the sell-off has started, that the deconstruction has begun. Because before it was just the anticipation of, we all know it's coming, everyone has said it's coming, just when. So
Yeah.
I guess my reaction to this trade is just that, yeah, I am, the wait is finally over.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Like it's only a fourth rounder, and Bordelot is a former second round pick in the 2020 draft, I believe by the Sharks. Yeah, um, and played college hockey at Michigan. Had like decently productive seasons for a couple of years. Has gotten a few opportunities in the NHL, the most successful of which, I believe, looking at all of the stats here, was in 23-24 when he played 27 games, scored 6 goals, and had 5 assists. So um, hasn't really stuck in the NHL quite yet. Hasn't really been super productive in the AHL either, at least not in the past couple of seasons, or this season. He definitely seems to be like a little bit slow on the production side. Um, but good to get, I mean, kind of really anything back for Nick Bjugstad, who again is a serviceable bottom sixer, but not someone who's going to net you a huge return. So I don't think either of the assets acquired are huge needle movers for the Blues in their future. But like you said, the biggest takeaway is, all right, here we go. Like it has begun. The Blues are selling on the season, and this is, we've had comments from Doug Armstrong coming out for months now about like, okay, like not that we're open for business, but we are listening on pretty much anybody, right? That's been known for a while. We've known that they've been in conversation with a lot of different teams and a lot of different players. That's not news, but the news is this is the first concrete commitment that we've seen that they are like going to be making some moves. So that's the biggest thing to me is, okay, it has begun. And with that being the case, once the roster freeze is over, there's not going to be not going to be a lot of time before the NHL trade deadline sets in. So if they want to sell off some more assets and move some more players. They're going to have to work quickly to get those moves done. Of course, they can negotiate during the roster freeze, but moves cannot be made. So there's a very real possibility that they already are close on a deal for Justin Falk or someone else, but we're just not going to know until the roster freeze is lifted. So yeah, like I said, it's real now, like you said as well.
Yeah.
Um, the other move that they made that we should discuss is not as sort of not as I mean not that the Bjugstad trade was like a big headline or anything, but I think this is maybe even less so. I don't know. But they made a waiver claim, right? They claimed forward Jack Finley off of waivers from the Tampa Bay Lightning, um, whose dad Jeff Finley played for the Blues back in the day. So it's a cool full circle type of moment, right? He was born in St. Louis, while his dad presumably was playing for the Blues, and was also a 2020 second round pick, this time by the Lightning, of course. Um, and I think his story is, you know, not too dissimilar from what Bordelot's is, in that, had a decent junior career. He played in the WHL, had a few moderately productive seasons, and then after sort of making the shift to AHL, NHL play, has been pretty good in the AHL and hasn't really done a whole lot in the NHL. This season, he got his longest look in the NHL. He played 22 games with the Lightning, scored 2 goals, and had 1 assist. So not a big producer in terms of points, of course, but he's pretty big, right? He's 6'5", 6'6", 220 pounds or something like that. So this is a big guy. How do you think he slots in the Blues organization? Do you think we see him play like one? Some people out there see him as maybe slotting in the center position on the fourth line, playing alongside Torpo and Walker or something like that. Or do you think he sees more time in Springfield before potentially coming up to St. Louis at some point?
I think with where the Blues are at in their season, I would play Finley. And I would just see what you got. Why not?
Hmm.
Because he's a big body, and that's essentially what Bukestad did for the team too. So
Yeah.
there's an argument to be made that essentially he just fills the Nick Bjugstad role, but instead you're taking veteran Nick Bjugstad and trading him out with a 23-year-old. So if anything, that's a pretty good baseline of a trade, or of a trade off. But I would try him on the center, on the fourth line, and
Hmm.
I think the reason is because I really like what Finley does defensively,
Hmm.
and I like the headiness that he plays with on defense, but he matches it with, I would say, like aggression, to match. Now he can, definitely like overcommit some, and I wouldn't say is a lockdown defender, but he does things the right way, even if the execution sometimes isn't always there, and can lead to putting him in bad, compromising positions. But I think for a fourth line center, I mean that's what the Blues did last season that worked so well, was just have a defensive minded, passer. And I think Finley can be that. So I think it can maybe be a little bit of a return to an identity that we'd seen work in the past. And I think that regardless, it's just always cool to see someone native to the city get to play for the team. So I think, especially in a city like St. Louis, people tend to rally around that kind of thing. So I mean, I selfishly do want to see him play for the NHL club, and I think there's good reason for it. But I can also understand he had 3 points in 22 games, so he's
Hmm.
really not offering much of anything on the production. And that's just adding a black hole to the lineup is never a good process. I do understand it. That's just how I would go, is playing Finley to see what you got. But yeah, I think there's reasons for and against it.
Yeah, I mean his biggest strength is his physicality, and that is a result of his big size, right? So I think your assessment is a good one, that he can maybe contribute defensively, and maybe sort of contribute as more of an enforcer, allowing guys like Torpchenko or Walker to mobilize a little better or something like that. But I like if he's playing in the bottom six, which he most likely is, and probably on that fourth line, you don't really need him to be a point producer. Maybe you'd ask Walker or Torpo or whoever else is factoring in down there to take on a bigger share of the point producing attempts and things like that. But you know, there's not much you can ask for offensively from your fourth line center. And so I think what you're getting from a guy like this, if he does play at the NHL level with St. Louis this season, he's just going to use that size and that physicality to go out there and smother people, right? Like I think that's going to be the main thing we see from him. He's you mentioned his defensive potential. I think that could be exciting. He's not a great. He's not great in the faceoff dot. In his entire NHL career, and again, this is only like a sample size of 175 faceoffs or thereabouts. He's got a faceoff percentage of just under 49%. So, you know, not great, but I think the sample size is really small there. So, curious to see how that develops. I think defensive fourth line center. I think of Radek Faksa, right? And you
Exactly.
pointed to the success of that fourth line last year. The strength of Faksa, though, in addition to just his defensive sense, was his faceoff potential. He had a 57% faceoff rate last year with St. Louis. So like that's why they got so much time and so much credit, is because they were getting a lot of those defensive zone faceoffs and stuff like that. So curious to see how that develops for Finley, if that's something that he can add to his game. But just to go back to, like, he is huge, and and he's gonna lay some hits on people. So that at least is something we can look forward to seeing from him.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I mean these moves indicate to me a couple of things, right? We mentioned it with the Bjugstad trade. Okay, the Blues are selling. With the Finley waiver claim, maybe there's an argument to be made that he is just kind of the Bjugstad replacement. You've lost Bjugstad, right? Traded him away. You're replacing him with the younger model of someone who probably or definitely isn't as capable offensively, but can fill a spot in the lineup and play that bottom six center role. I think that's a reasonable argument, but given the potential that a guy like that Otto Stenberg showed when he was in St. Louis, I think a lot of Blues fans were pleasantly surprised and maybe caught a little bit off guard with the maturity and confidence that Stenberg played with. There's a lot of promise there and a lot of excitement around Otto Stenberg. Now, Stenberg was sent down to the AHL to get some continued reps and continued playing time throughout the NHL, or throughout the Olympic break, rather. And so I'm anticipating that he's going to be called back up. but his spot is currently being held by Finley. Like once the waiver claim was made, that spot was taken back up. And so to me, like given where the Blues are at right now, they're going to be selling, right? They're going to be trying to get some more reps for the young guys. Like Otto Stenberg is very very close to the top of the list for me of guys that I want to see get those reps. And I'm sure the Blues are thinking along a similar line. And so to me, the Finley claim means like, and maybe this is just stating the obvious, and this was going to happen either way, but it's like there are more moves coming and probably very soon. I would be surprised if they didn't have something lined up like pretty soon after the freeze ends. You know, like I know Doug Armstrong is GM for Team Canada and is going to be paying pretty close attention to that, but like don't you think like don't you get the sense that he really wants to make something happen? Like he talked a couple weeks ago. I think the word he used was embarrassing when he talked about the way this season has gone for the Blues. Like, don't you get the sense that he's just itching to like do something significant?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it would be, a great way to send off and, set up Steen for the next wave would be to get some serious asset or something.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so like I think what we should do next is like let's talk about what kinds of moves we can feasibly expect before the trade deadline, which is it March 7th, I think maybe.
I think it is.
I'll go ahead and confirm that, but again, there isn't a lot of time. I'm gonna look up how much time is actually available for NHL teams to make moves. Um, let's see. The Blues play again on February 26th. The trade deadline is March 6th. So not a lot of time there, right? They've got just over a week to get all their moves done before the trade deadline. And so we've talked a lot in recent weeks about some of the trades the Blues might make at some point in the near future. We've talked about Justin Falk and Braden Shen. We did an episode breaking down the big names, Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. And we did a goalie episode where we discussed the possibility of a Bennington trade as well. But I'm not like we're not going to see all of those, right? Like that's not going to happen. So what do you see as like top of the list priority to get done for the Blues? Like if the Blues could go out there and make one move, which hopefully they don't. Hopefully they make a little bit more than that. But if they could only make like one or two moves before the deadline, what takes priority for you?
Top of the list, first thing to get done, 1A for me is Justin Falk. I
Yeah,
think given the year that he's having, given how long you've been trying to move off of this contract and maybe just get a new voice in the captainship too. There's a lot of ways to look at this possible trade. I think it's one that, in the long term could help the Blues grow,
yeah.
and it kind of feels mutual because at this point,
Hmm.
Justin Falk has, outside of, I guess, I shouldn't say no reason to stay in St. Louis because he'll always have the life that he and his family have built, and the lives of his kids and always to consider. But in terms of product on the ice, Justin Falk has nothing left in St. Louis for him. And why shouldn't he want to go get the chance to, achieve the ultimate hockey player goal on a team that is going to make the playoffs this year? So
Yeah.
um, if it's mutually beneficial for both sides. There's so many ways to look at it. It's his value's never been higher. It's just this perfect storm. Get it done.
Yeah, that's first on my list as well. It feels like a move that has needed to happen for maybe a couple years now. Although I would probably push back on most of the criticism of Justin Falk. Like I think he has been perfectly serviceable as a second line or a second pair right-handed defenseman for a little while now. Like you haven't gotten what you expected you would get out of him. You hadn't gotten what you had hoped you'd get out of him, especially offensively, for a little while. Um, I don't. I think he's been fine. That's another conversation. Um, I think this is one that just needs to happen. And we've talked for a while now. The time is never going to be better than it is right now. You know, he's only got one more season left on his deal after this year. It's not a huge commitment for a team to take that contract on. He is playing better offensively than he has like individual offensive production. He hasn't looked better in several seasons. Um, Teams could use that, right? And with the rising cap and the fact that the Blues are going to be selling off anyway, if they have to retain to improve the potential return, I think they're set up to do that, right? The cap is going to go up. They're going to be moving other salary, other contracts off the books, and you're only retaining for one full year, right? So like I think they should be prepared to eat a chunk of that salary if they have to. Um, I think that just makes good sense to me. But yeah, this has to get done. Um, I think we talked a little bit about the like potential suitors that we could see for Justin Falk. The ones that are top of mind for me right now are the Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings. I think the Panthers are struggling right now. They might miss the playoffs entirely. They've got Seth Jones and Aaron Ekblad on. They're out with injury right now, and they're probably coming back before NHL play resumes. But like if they do, they're still playing Jeff Petrie on the third pair, which I think is probably something they want to stop doing. So like I think they need a right-handed defenseman. Justin Falk can be that for them. So maybe that's a suitor. But the one that intrigues me more is the Detroit Red Wings, who are desperate to get back to the playoffs. Also need some right-handed defenseman depth behind that top pair, which looks so good. And they've got like a more promising prospect pool to choose from than the Florida Panthers do. There are some exciting forwards in there like Max Plant. They have a couple exciting goalie prospects that they probably don't have room for in Trey Augustine and Sebastian Cossa. So like those are intriguing to me. Alex Ferrario posted a call for fan trade proposals the other day on Twitter. And the one that I threw in there was Justin Falk to Detroit for, I think I said Trey Augustine, and a 2026 second rounder that turns into a first if the Detroit Red Wings win a playoff round and Falk plays 50% of those games. So like I think that would be a great scenario for the Blues to sort of get that type of return. Maybe that's a little bit much for Justin Falk, but maybe they retain 50% and they're able to make it happen. So like I think the way it's lining up, they could feasibly fetch a return like that. Anyways, the potential for that kind of thing excites me. So yeah, I think this needs to happen.
Yeah, and I think that scenario that you sort of threw in at the end there, where the Blues end up retaining a little bit of money to make sure the deal gets done, I think that something like that is actually very likely, and something like that could actually be really mutually beneficial because then from the Red Wings or from whoever the buyer's perspective is, you're getting Justin Falk for, I don't know, 3 million, 4 million a year. And even like if he regresses next year back to that's 1 year of a very low cap hit that's you could easily cut, or that you could figure out what to do with, which would make them more willing and reasonable to throw in that prospect that the Doug Armstrong and Alex Steen in the Blues want. And so I think that's notable to bring up. And yeah, I think that a return like that would be awesome for Falk. And I don't think it's impossible that we see something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to have a lot of things go right to get something that promising. Um, but maybe there's like a bit of a bidding war or something for his services, and you can jack the price up. Who knows? So yeah, I agree. That one's top of the list for me. I think number two for me, and this is a tough one because I think there are, again, some fans out there might think of this as a poor argument to keep him around. But there are a lot of intangibles to Braden Shen's game that could make him worth keeping around as you try to usher in the next young core. Um, if that's something he wants to do, I think you have to do your due diligence and approach him with the possibility of trading him. See if he'd be willing to waive. Um, if there's a trade to a team on his no trade list, right? But if he's willing to stick around and sort of instill some really good values in your next young core, that's something that could be worth keeping around. That being said, I still don't think it's valuable enough uh, in my eyes to not make that trade. Um, but I think Braden Shen is probably next up for me. Um, and that's tough to say. He has the same cap hit as Justin Falk does, 6.5 million, and he has one extra year beyond that. So he's got, after this season, two more seasons, and so probably not one that you want to retain a whole lot on, if any. But thoughts on the potential of trading away Braden Shen. Do you think this is one that should be a priority? Do you think it's one that is likely to happen before the trade deadline?
I definitely think those are two different questions when
Yeah.
considering Braden Shen. Um, I don't think it's a priority to move off of Braden Shen because the world in which Braden Shen plays out the rest of his year in or the rest of his contract in St. Louis
Mm-hmm.
to me doesn't sound like the end of the world. I mean, you let your
Yeah.
captain, end on relatively good terms. He's there to be probably if you do that, then he would be like the one veteran piece you keep around because I think you keep around. And I guess to me, I'm also excluding Colton Parayko from this discussion
Mm.
because to me,
Yeah.
Colton Parayko is just like a key building block.
Yeah. I
But
think so too.
I think you would want to keep like one old guard around to maintain the Blues culture, whether that be Shen or someone else. But I think in that case, um, then yeah. So basically, to me, it's not a big priority to move off of Shen. But if a deal does come to you, that's where I would start to find value in trading Shen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think he's going to be plenty valuable in St. Louis. Um, and I think the teams that want Braden Shen are already going to have a pretty set idea of what they want to pay for a guy like Braden Shen. I don't think there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be, whereas Justin Falk, you can promise a lot more upside. I don't think Braden Shen, there's going to be as much room for negotiation. And so I think you let the market come to you on a player like Braden Shen.
Yeah.
And so to what that would look like on our end as fans would be not very much. I mean, maybe rumors from the teams that are pursuing him, but like there wouldn't be a lot of the Blues are shopping Braden Shen and like trade proposals and such.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would be if a deal happens, it'll happen. Otherwise, Shen will be on the roster. So that's how I would address trading Shen. But I do want to acknowledge that I do understand the people that just want to clean house and start over. Um, like I said, I see a lot of value in keeping, or I see like some value in keeping Shen. Um, and I think having him be your captain um, also plays into this discussion a little bit. To where like who in that case, is there anyone even ready on the roster to take over as captain? Like, do they have that kind of a leader? I don't know. I think that there's enough for me to um want Shin to be the one piece you keep. Um, Although I understand the sentiment behind wanting to clean house, I guess I would just push back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends a lot on how confident you are that some other players on the roster can do that, right? Can Colton Parayko do that? I don't know, can Robert Thomas do that? I don't know if I'm convinced that he has that sort of mentality. But the one guy that like I think could make it like that could sort of ease the pain of losing Braden Shen is Jake Neighbors. Like I think he has so much of what it takes to sort of build that mentality and be that type of leader in the clubhouse. Just like every story that you hear about Jake Neighbors, everything that comes out about him, and then you watch the way he plays, you watch the way he works and talks with his teammates. Like he just oozes that stuff, right? Like I think he is the clear next guy up to be captain of this team. So, anyways, that's a conversation for another time. But like, I think the logic behind your argument, which I think is well made, also depends on again how comfortable the Blues are with someone else sort of carrying that torch. Um, if they're not, and if they really think they value what Shin brings in that way, then maybe we don't see that trade. Um, but if they are um, feeling more urgent and like they want to sort of rework this team and remake this team, I think maybe we do see a move. And you know what? Like as valuable as some of those intangibles are that Shin brings, and as much as I like those on paper, I think there's something wrong with this team, and there has been for a while. Like the core that they have in place right now for the first half of the 2020s just hasn't been good enough. It just hasn't, and you can point to on ice play as one reason why. You can point to maybe coaching is one reason why at times, but maybe it's a culture thing too, and maybe there's just something about the way they're currently constructed with the core they currently have in place that just won't work. And so maybe shaking that up in the biggest way, like one of the biggest ways imaginable, and trading away your captain, you know, maybe that's what it takes to sort of give this team a bit of a reset. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely could. Um, but there's also the chance that a move like that is what collapses a team on the brink.
Yeah,
So
maybe so. Maybe so. I think the return for Shen right now um, is also not great. Like maybe you can get a couple second rounders for him or something. Um, but
maybe.
maybe it's hard to tell. Like they could have gotten a lot for him last year. I'm glad they like say what you will. I'm glad that they didn't. That run to the playoffs was, I think, really good for the team and good for the young players on the team. Um, like I think it's loser thinking to say they should have that was a bad thing. Anyways, um, so maybe this is one where they hold on to him and we see a trade at next year's deadline. He at that point would have the rest of the season plus one more. So like it would be a similar situation that you're in with Justin Falk right now. And I don't know, like maybe he plays his way to a bit of a higher return. I don't know. It's tough to tell. Um, but they do have a little bit of that flexibility. Who else? Who else? Can we agree that, I mean, like maybe there's some blockbuster where the Blues trade Jordan Kyrou or something like that before the deadline, but like I think the likelihood that we see Kyrou or Thomas traded before March 6th is pretty slim. What do you think?
Yeah, just because there hasn't been a lot of build up to it either. I mean, the Kyra rumor mill is evergreen,
It's
but
working. It's
the
working
the
overtime
the
right now.
Kairu anything tangible mill has been bone dry for the last 6 years. So maybe one bump last summer. But yeah, I mean, I don't I wouldn't see it, especially because I think they want this to be a pretty quick turnaround back into contending so that they can
Hmm.
maximize the windows of players like Dalibor Dvorsky, Philip Broberg, Dylan Holloway, and then even you could throw in Robert Thomas into that mix of like their prime is coming or it's here. Now is when the Blues should be trying to get back to contention, because this is like just I would say this season's probably the bottoming out, to be honest. But then if you start when you're like right on the, beginning, if you bottom out again, then you just lose all that progress. So anyways, all this to say, um, just I do I I think that they do want to align themselves with this window that they've built over the past couple seasons, which is a,
Hmm.
a pretty decent core, but definitely needs some help. Um, and so, yeah, I would be surprised if Jordan Cairo and Robert Thomas weren't a part of that. I guess I do see a world where a blockbuster Cairo trade goes down, but
Hmm.
I think it's unlikely. Not impossible though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's way more likely than a Thomas trade, especially before the deadline. And I think in both cases, if it's going to happen, it's going to be during the off season or like on draft day or something like that. Like I don't think this is a trade deadline type of move. Could be wrong. Maybe the Blues have something big cooking, but um, I think as a trade deadline move, I don't know if it's in the cards. Um, Anyone else that sort of comes to mind for you as potential trade chips to be traded before March 6th? I mean, like I wonder about a Pius Suter, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't I don't think a guy like Suter would be moved, but he does have a lot of value, so there is like definitely reason for it. But that's
Hmm.
kind of why I don't think he wants to be. He's going to be moved because I think the Blues want him on the team.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess then there's an argument. I don't know. I won't go down that rabbit hole. Um, other than that, I mean, I don't really think so, because you just extended Fowler, you just
Hmm.
extended Toropchenko.
Hmm.
These are kind of the fringe roster guys at this point. I mean, you're not like making a trade deadline trade away with like Tyler Tucker,
Yeah.
or like waiver claim Jonathan Berggren. So yeah, I don't think there is another piece to move, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. I know there are certainly some out there who want to see other pieces moved, and I don't know that I can say that I can blame them. I think, you know,
Got to field
there,
the team.
yeah, I think in terms of things that are maybe closer to like a 50-50, or it's just kind of tough to say, you got like Sunquist and Joseph who are pending UFAs, um, not moving the needle in terms of a return. But at some point, you got to have enough bodies to fill out a lineup card, and so, um, maybe the Blues end up moving one of them, but again, not going to be huge. And then like maybe you could throw Jordan Binnington in there. I don't know. Like I don't think I see that one happening, but maybe his stock rises a lot at the Olympics, and you decide it's time to move on. Um, Again, I don't know if I see that happening, but I think it could be closer to like a toss up. Um, Anyways, yeah, I think that probably about does it by like in terms of moves that we could feasibly see before the deadline. And again, I think Justin Falk is the only one that I look at and I say this is like a must trade player, and it's because he's been so good. And I again, I don't think his like time in St. Louis has been a total failure. I just think that the stars are never going to align better. Um, okay,
Yeah.
let's pivot now and talk about in our remaining time a little bit more quickly, sort of like what this team could look like next year. Um, so let's assume, for the sake of argument, that they do trade away Justin Falk. Let's just say that one does happen. Um, we don't really have to say that about any of the others. Like maybe we could say that happens with Suter or Shen, um, but like let's say I don't know, top line next season. You got Thomas playing center. You got Snuggerud on the wing, and you throw Jake Neighbors up there with him, right? Let's say you're keeping one of Shen and Suter. They're your two C, and you got like Holloway and Cairo on that second line. Um, top pair Broberg Pareko, Fowler is down there as well. Like, what does this team look like to you next season? So let's assume you're keeping Thomas. Let's assume that you're keeping Pareko. Um, you are continuing to give opportunities to your young guys in Snuggerud, in Dvorsky. Let's say Otto Stenberg is up, right? Like, what about guys like Adam Yurchek? What about guys like Justin Carbona? Like, do you think they start to factor into the conversation next year? And like, I just want to get your thoughts on what this team might look like to start the season in 2026-27.
I think that, you know,
Oh, and I should say real quick, just to like throw this into the conversation as well. Sorry to cut you off. Um, like, let's assume that the Blues get, knock on wood, like a top five draft pick, and with that, get the type of player that you could feasibly see starting the season in the NHL, whether it's like an Ivar Stenberg or a Gavin McKenna or a Keaton Verhoff, whoever it is. Like, I think those three would probably be like best case scenario if you can get one of those three. But like, let's assume that whoever they draft like could feasibly factor into the conversation there. Anyways, take it away.
okay, yeah. Um, yeah, I think it's the 2026-2027 Blues have their depth figured out. They
Hmm.
have their bottom of the roster like completely filled out. I think there's no need for signing players like Bjugstad, and I think that they have enough complementary pieces to make it work and to be serviceable. And that's not factoring in any development that players who would filling in would take over an off season of work. Players like Otto Stenberg, like if Berggren is kept around, players like Alexei Toropchenko, he'll be 27, so sort of entering his prime. I think you can fill out, and I guess Jack Finley technically would
Maybe.
factor into that maybe. But I think you can figure out pretty easily the depth on this roster. So I would say that you have sort of the skeleton, um, and then I think you have also like the nervous system that connects it, with players like if you keep Thomas and Cairo, if they can rebound to be 80 plus point players, if Snuggerud takes his second year leap that we all think he can, if
Mm-hmm.
Dvorsky takes his second year leap, and then also guys like Colton Pareko, who just is exactly what I'm picturing when I'm picturing like the connective tissue of this Blues roster. Um, Philip Broberg, if he's not even in the category above. But what's missing is like the, for lack of a better word, like the flesh or the meat of this roster, like the thing that is going to hold them up and let them, um, let all of the other things sort of slot into place. The
Got good
thing,
news for you. Corey
yeah.
Perry is a UFA.
Well, let's say for the sake of argument that the Blues don't sign Corey Perry because that is a foregone conclusion.
All
Um,
right.
um, but maybe that can be like the piece you're talking about that comes in through the draft.
Hmm.
Maybe it takes an off season of work, but I think that the Blues have the framing and the structure of a really good hockey team, and maybe even the motor in Robert Thomas. But they need just one supportive structure to sort of fill in the gaps and bind all of this together, by being the thing that you can fall back on,
Hmm.
by being the player that you can fall back on. If that's a young goal scorer or a a piece you can acquire over the off season, um, I think that would set this team up for having a really really good structure into making like deep playoff runs.
Is that something that you think they should go out and look for on the free agent market, or pursue some sort of like shake up trades? Like, what are your thoughts on where that sort of like meat of the roster would be found?
Well, I think you have to wait and see how the draft goes
Hmm.
because I think it could be found there if
Hmm.
things go right. Like you said, if it's one of those top three, I think the Blues have done their job, and that can be a promising young team at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Um, so I think you have to reevaluate after the draft. Is my answer to that.
Yeah. To me, I think for a team like that to be a threat for the playoffs, you have to have a lot of things go right. Like you have to have your young players like making improvements. You know, you have to have, like you said, Snuggerud and Dvorsky sort of maturing into what they can potentially be long term. Otto Stenberg having a productive season. And if, I mean, it's crazy that it could be happening already, and it feasibly could work. If Juracek and Carbonneau can come up and be productive and exciting and stick, like, that could be good too. And um, maybe if that is supplemented with your reliable players like Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, um, that could be good. And I think you're also asking for, in addition for those young guys to make improvements, you're also asking for your veterans or core players to bounce back, because everyone's having a bad year right now. I mean, even Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, they've had stretches where they're productive. They've had stretches where they look good. Like Jordan Kyrou going into the Olympic break, he played really well. I think he had like something like, what was it, 11 points in 7 games or something like that. I could be totally getting that wrong, but like somewhere close to that level of production, like we have seen from them at times. But this season is just a down year for everyone. Pavel Buchnevich, can he bounce back? Like I think that's a big one too. Um, and I think where a roster like that concerns me is like you're asking for a lot of things to go right, and the sport of hockey, I don't think is too kind to teams um, that ask that question. That ask for those things to happen. Um, that being said, like that's sort of the realist in me, but like I think that there is definitely a world where um, you get some of those things to happen, and a team that has some like young veterans. Like, do you know what I mean by that? Like a Kyrou, a Thomas, a Buchnevich, like, and maybe Pareko. you could call him a young veteran, like young veterans, having them be the structure of the team, and then the kids going crazy. Snuggerud, maybe he can score 30 goals. Dvorsky, maybe he can get like 50 points. And maybe Juracek and Carbonneau again can light it up somehow, or like bring some spark and some fire to the team. And then again, maybe this upcoming first round pick can be a factor in that as well. Like I think there is definitely more than one like feasible scenario where that concoction, that recipe is one that works. And I think that's exciting. Like I think, I think it just depends on how long term the Blues are thinking with their like retool that they've sort of re-entered again. Is this something that they see as a process of a couple of years, or are they ready to rack it back up and go again? If it's the latter, then like like maybe we see something like what we're talking about. But if it's the other way around, maybe some of those like supporting structural pieces won't be around, and things look a little bit more messy. Anyways, a lot of thoughts there. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it comes down to if Army and Steen want to blow it up and start over, they have and will always have the power to do that. It's just a question of if they want to do that or not. And before this year, I would say no. I don't think that they do. Um, I would say their kind of lack on commenting on it so far is pretty abnormal for Blues
Hmm.
standards.
Yeah.
Um, like normally, they would come out and say something like, "Well, we're bad this year, but we're going to be good next year," or something, more GM speaky. But that conveys that kind of message. They haven't done that this year, so maybe that is an indication that they're thinking of this being more of a long-term rebuild. And you and I will both be shocked when the Robert Thomas trade comes through. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to be, a decision made by the front office, and it's not the one I would prefer them to make. But it is, if they think this roster is farther away, and that's the route the Blues will take, um, then what we've talked about today, there will be more sales than what
Hmm.
we've talked about today.
I almost wonder if the silence on that point is just coming from like I, I feel like you said, a lot of times they have come out and said what they're thinking about this team and what's next. And a lot of times they've been wrong, like even over the past couple of seasons, like we saw at the start of 24, 25, they're like the retool continues, we're maybe a couple of years out. Surprise, Jim Montgomery's available and the team goes on a hot streak, right? And they go toe to toe with the Jets. We were all sort of believing that this team was back. And then in the offseason, Doug Armstrong said the whatever is over. Like we're ready to compete. We're going for the playoffs. Like that is what's next. And then he was wrong about that. Like on one hand, you can claim confidently that next season you'll be back, and you're going to be competitive. But I think the safer bet is just to kind of wait and see how the trade deadline goes, wait and see how the draft goes, and then maybe sort of answer some of those questions in the off season. And if they say like, yeah, we'll see what happens, but we're kind of thinking this could be a longer thing, and then surprise the team is good, like I think that's better than saying like that from their perspective, that is more appealing than saying we are competitive and then they end up being not, So like I wonder if that's the logic there. I'd be surprised if we didn't hear from them after the trade deadline, based on whatever happens, whatever moves they make, whatever deals they get done. I would be surprised if we didn't see them make some comments about those moves and what it means for the future at that point. But again, it seems like they've had to do this a lot of times in recent seasons, and maybe they're just trying something new. I don't know. Um, okay. Well, anything else to add on the trade deadline?
I don't think so.
I think this will be something that we continue to address here and there as the trade deadline approaches. Probably more in earnest once NHL play picks back up again. I don't know if we'll talk a ton about trades and stuff during the break just because nothing's really happening right now. So unless there is news that comes to light, we'll probably pivot to talking about some Olympic hockey, which is so much more fun to watch than watching the Blues right now, which is sad to say. Um, but I think I texted you watching this Slovakia Finland game. I am ready to run through a wall for this Slovakian team, dude. Like they are young, they are scrappy. Their goalie, who's like only decent in the AHL, like came out of nowhere and like put up. I think it was like 44 saves or something like that. That's an Olympic record. Um, so so much fun, so much fun. So we aren't doing episodes as regularly during the break, but we'll probably be back soon to talk about how Blues players are performing in the Olympics. We'll see Colton Parayko get his first taste of Olympic action tomorrow, and I don't know if we know for sure who's getting the start in net tomorrow. I don't think they have like officially revealed that, but if it's Benner, then we'll definitely have something to talk about. Either way, either way that goes. So definitely stay tuned for that, and if you're interested in the Olympic speak and also trade deadline discussions and stuff like that, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the best way to support us. Like this video if you haven't already. We're also on audio. We're on Spotify and Apple, so follow, rate, and review wherever you listen, wherever you get your podcasts. And then follow us on socials if that's your thing. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod, where we like to interact with everyone else, with everyone over there. So I think that'll do it for us this time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Let us know your thoughts on the upcoming trade deadline and on Olympic hockey. And we'll see you next time. And as always, let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.